We're calling this meeting to order at 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. The adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair, if I just might add a couple of things. Just want to acknowledge that there has been addition to the first agenda that went out, item number 13, which was just the upcoming meetings that we added. And then also changed, there was an error on my part, the first name of our delegation. It is Sandra Van Breda that will be joining us tonight. And just a couple other items, just so that everyone is aware, we had quite a few issues this week with eScribe, our platform connecting with our website. So unfortunately, the full agenda package wasn't up on time. However, the agenda itself was up before the 45-hour deadline. And according to our procedural bylaw, section 5.1.4, the agenda for each regular meeting of council shall be available 45 hours prior to the meeting. So it does not stipulate the agenda package. It is the agenda itself, which was up before the 45-hour time frame. So with that, the recommendation is that West Elgin Council hereby adopt the agenda as presented.
Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Statham. Seconder, Councillor Navakis. All in favour? It's carried. Disclosure of any pecuniary interest? If not now, at the time. I see none. Delegations. Sharon Van Breda, President of the Rodney Aldeburgh Society, Agricultural Society. If she'd like to come up to the podium, welcome to West Elgin, and put the mic on.
Good afternoon, sorry.
Thank you.
May I start? Okay. Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for adding me to today's agenda and allowing me to speak regarding the revitalization plans for the property known as the Rodney Park. I know that this project is in its infancy, with the grant application being due March the 6th, 2024. The reason why I stand before you is to speak about the long-standing agreement between the municipality of West Elgin and the Rodney Aldeburgh Agricultural Society. The parties to this signed agreement have agreed that the Rodney Aldeburgh Agricultural Society has full use of this property during the time period in which the fair is operational. The Rodney Park Playground Committee have met on numerous occasions to work on the proposal for submission of a government grant. It is my understanding that the council, the Kiwanis Club, and community members have equal representation on this committee. There has not been proper representation of the Rodney Aldeburgh Agricultural Society on this committee. I stand before you as the current president of the Rodney Aldeburgh Agricultural Society, and therefore as a partner to the long-standing agreement with the municipality of West Elgin. I am requesting that the council ensures there is an equal representation on the aforementioned committee afforded to the Rodney Aldeburgh Agricultural Society. I am requesting this because any changes regarding location of this playground outbuildings could or will have an adverse effect on our ability to organize the vendors, their equipment, and the midway location. Pardon me. This could mean that the hydro, water, and fence relocation restructuring may be required. If this is the case, then a discussion will have to be had between the municipality of West Elgin and the Rodney Aldeburgh Agricultural Society when the time comes. As the municipality of West Elgin is part of the spearheading of this project, I am requesting that a motion be made and carried today, which reads: the municipality of West Elgin will ensure the Rodney Aldeburgh Agricultural Society will have equal representation on Rodney Park Playground Committee so that their needs are taken into account. Rationale: we request this motion as the only other party of the agreement with the municipality of West Elgin for full use of the said property. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your delegation, and you can well assure that your words are well noted. Comments from council?
Just a question. So Sandra, they haven't ever reached out to you to be a member of?
No one.
Okay.
I just found out the other day.
Okay, Mr. Danny.
Through the chair, and thank you for your presentation, Sandra. So when the idea was originally created, there was a sit down with all community parties invited, including some of your predecessors on the fair board who did sit with that initial idea. I think probably what happened was that as the committee got formed, there was a transition in the executive leadership at the fair board, and perhaps it just the communication did not carry through. So there was an intent originally that the fair board would be very much involved in this park committee revitalization, because they recognize that the fair board's a very, very big part of that park and that they should certainly have a say.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor
Thank you.
Elliott?
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, were you not on the walkthrough on Monday that happened? Or whatever day that
That
was?
was the only time I've been,
Oh, so they have contacted you then at some point?
the one time.
Oh, okay. And the committee was there though as well? Yeah, that's who's heading the committee along with Elizabeth. Okay. And some other people, just instead of naming everybody. Okay, just double checking. All right, thank you, and really duly noted for your words. Thank you for coming out today.
Anyone else want to say anything? Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, it's been well noted, and I'm sure there'll be a remedy. So that brings us on to our next delegation, which is 4.2. Mr. Kelly Linton Consulting Services, reorganization review. If you'd like to come up to the podium and speak.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll talk really slow until you get there. Okay. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be with you today to present the executive presentation of the final report. The presentation is designed to be about 15 minutes, but I'm here to answer whatever questions that you have on the presentation or the full final report. Absolutely enjoyed working with your team on this project. We had a very collaborative process, and I'll get into that in a minute. But we had significant consultation with your staff team, which is really, really good for this kind of project. I have to give you a word of caution. When consultants come in, we focus on the things that have to be fixed. So it might seem that it's overly negative, and I apologize for that in advance. But I don't want you to leave. I don't want to leave the impression that everything is broken. There's a lot of good things happening with the municipality. It's just that I happen to be here focusing on what we can do to make improvements. So, and I am convinced that if these recommendations are implemented, it's going to make significant improvement to the organization, not just minor, significant. And I'm looking forward to going into those recommendations, and I can answer whatever questions that you have. You have some really good people at the municipality, really solid staff, really good performers. There needs to be a fix in a couple flaws that you have in the organizational structure, which is the foundation behind the organization. And if those fixes are made, I think you're going to notice a substantial improvement. So as far as, am I going to give you like sure. Page ahead, or you're? Let me know. I'm a control freak, so usually I control my own stuff. So I might kind of break into hives here. The agenda for today, a little bit about the project objectives or the approach that we took, current assessment, case for change. Then I'll get into the recommendations, the high level implementation plan, and then what I anticipate as the benefits if you move forward with implementation. So the next page there, project objectives, just to remind us all what this project was all about. The purpose of the project was to assess whether West Elgin has the resources, skill sets, capacity, and positive working environment or an organizational configuration required to achieve strategic priorities. Really, is your foundation set up so that you can operate effectively, efficiently, and provide excellent customer service? And are your staff happy and is morale good? So taking a look at the whole organization. So the outcomes for this project: assess the current capacity of the organization to achieve council-approved strategic goals and objectives, review departmental functions in terms of workflow and alignment, identify any gaps, any areas of role duplication or overlap, review the staffing levels and determine the appropriate staffing resource levels required to meet workload demands. And finally, then produce an action-oriented, high-level implementation plan. So the approach that we took for this project is four phases. And this slide shows a progression from the project launch phase to current state assessment, to the design and options phase, and finally to recommendations. What's a really important point to make is the recommendations from this project flow from the findings of this project. So there's nothing in my back pocket that I present to every municipality. It came from what I found as the key areas for improvement for this municipality. It was a highly collaborative project. A couple things, I'm not going to go into detail about this, but in order to do this project right, you have to have a solid current assessment phase. In order to move towards recommendations, you have to understand what's working and what needs to be improved with your current organization. So the second phase, the current assessment and the case for change, is absolutely critical. And we had significant involvement of staff at this phase. 3 sessions with staff, so 21 staff participated in in-person sessions. In addition, we had an online questionnaire where staff were allowed to provide anonymous feedback that only went to me. And then one-on-one conversations. I had 23 specific conversations with any staff that wanted to talk to me. 23 people took me up on that offer, which is unbelievable. Like, I usually offer office hours so that any staff can talk to me, and I maybe get 5, 6 respondents. I had 23 people sign up for this. So that tells me that there's a investment from staff in this organization and things that people wanted to talk about. So because of that, though, you'll be able to see that these recommendations flow from what staff told me. And that's absolutely critical. So then the final phase is where we're at right now. Pull all the findings together into a final report that includes everything, and then a presentation here to council. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the current assessment. What did we find when we took that initial look at the organization? Detailed findings are in the final report under appendix, starting on page 30, if you want to take a look at that in more detail. I've just summarized them in 5 headings here. The first heading is leadership and decision-making, and I summarized it like this. While there's widespread agreement among members of council and staff that the relationship between council and the administration is very respectful and positive, the current workload on the CAO treasurer is unsustainable and does not contribute to effectively managing the organization. I want to pause at the positive for a sec. The fact that there's a respectful relationship between staff and council is not something that you should take for granted. In my time as being a head of council, both at the county level and the municipality level, I was able to witness both scenarios where staff and the council had a terrible relationship. And so don't take that for granted. That's something really positive to work with. And it'll mean that implementing these recommendations is going to be a lot less painful than if you didn't have that positive relationship between staff and council. But that was a key finding. That current / role CEO treasurer, I can understand why you did it, but it's not sustainable. And I'll get into that when I talk about that recommendation specifically. But here it's current assessment that we're talking about right now. The second one is related to customer service and external communication. There has been some improvement. There is agreement that external communication needs to improve. Currently, there's a lack of internal capacity for that function. Under teamwork and collaboration, there's a perception that staff can work well together when there's a sense of urgency or a deadline, but there's some frustration regarding the lack of consistent internal communication and collaboration on an ongoing basis. Turning to the next page, number 4, under roles, responsibility, and workload, widespread agreement among management, staff, and counselors that the workload on the CEO, treasurer, and the manager of operations and community services is too heavy. They are unable to dedicate sufficient time, energy, or time and effort for either strategic leadership or mentoring their staff. You don't want to burn out your senior team. That's absolutely critical. Because when organizations do that, they lose good people, and you don't want that to happen. 5, succession planning and staff morale. High staff turnover was identified by counselors, managers, and staff as the most critical issue facing the municipality. Well, the rate of pay was identified as a major cause. Poor staff morale and interpersonal conflicts also contribute to this situation. Okay, so those are the key bucket areas under the current assessment. I'm going to flip over then towards the recommendations. So we spent significant time with Magda and the senior team to look at different, given the current assessment stage and the findings, we spent some time looking at different options for the future. And so we went through a whole brainstorming session where we looked at different potential options for a functional model. And when I talk about functional model, I'm talking about this is a high level where you start to organize the functions based on departments and business units. At this point, we're not talking about people. We're just talking about function, because it's my experience and the way I do organizational design. Things have to fit together from a functional perspective before you layer the people onto it. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a functional model and walk through whether this will work functionally, and then layer the organizational chart and the people on top of that. So this is a high level view of the recommended functional model. Page 10 in the final report gives more detailed information about what functions and activities fit under each department and business unit. And page 11 then has a detailed recommended full organizational chart. So I can answer whatever questions you have on the detail, but for this purpose, I wanted us to focus on function. So a couple key features or changes from the status quo: 4 departments with 5 senior management team members and 4 direct reports into the CAO. All functions except for economic development and business relations, which is a gap right now, under a home department. So I've tried to slot in the functions underneath the home department in as many areas as possible. For the business relations and economic development, I felt that still should fit underneath the CAO. All shifted recreation facilities and parks out of the current public works department into the community services department. Shifted planning and building to infrastructure and development services, shifted bylaw enforcement to community services under the clerk, developed the corporate services department with finance, IT, human resources, and transit administration within that department. Added emergency planning, the CEMC role to fire and emergency services. So we started to detangle things to fit things together based on synergies and based on similar skill sets and mutual dependencies. So we went through a whole process to identify that. You'll see in the final report, there's design principles. So when we looked at the potential options for a functional model, we in addition to addressing current state findings, we also wanted to make sure that they hit key principles of good organizational design. So the senior team worked together to develop those principles, and then we ran the features or the options of the different functional model potential options by these eight principles to identify whether what scored the highest. Okay, so it was a really good session. So getting into the detailed recommendations, I'm just going to read these out word for word because the wording is absolutely critical. Detailed recommendations are found on pages 13 to 22. Each recommendation identifies required action items, the rationale or anticipated benefits of each recommendation, implementation considerations, and then the recommended implementation timing. So that detail is in the final report. Recommendation 1, formalize 3 levels of leadership with clear position roles, responsibilities, and expectations at each level. I think that is something that's really important for staff to understand what level of expectation is required at each of those levels. Recommendation 2 is establish a 4-department structure with manager level department heads reporting to the CAO. These departments are infrastructure and development services, community services, corporate services, and fire and emergency services. Recommendation 3, This is the biggest one. Create a manager, corporate services / treasurer position, reporting to the CAO with responsibility to oversee and manage the township's finances, technology systems and services, human resources, customer services, and transit administration. That position will be part of the senior management team. There is a synergies in all those enabling corporate functions, and I think broadening that out to include not just the finance will give you an opportunity and make it easier to sell to potential recruits, because it's an interesting position. You'll be able to do a lot of different work in a municipality this size. Recommendation 4, revise the job description of the current manager of operations and community services to become the manager, infrastructure and development services. This position will continue to report to the CAO with responsibility to manage and maintain the township's transportation network, utilities, drainage, and landfill assets, while overseeing all planning and building inspection activities. This position will continue to be part of the senior management team. Recommendation 5, revise the job description of the current municipal clerk position to become the manager, community services, and municipal clerk. Position will continue to report to the CAO with responsibility to manage legislative clerk services, council support, information records management, bylaw compliance, communications, community engagement, and recreation facilities and parks. Review the workload after 6 months to determine if a shared specialist communications and community engagement position is required. This position will continue to be part of the senior management team. Recommendation 6, create a shared specialist asset management position reporting to the manager, corporate services, and treasurer with responsibility to implement the township's asset management strategy in compliance to statutory requirements. So that's a shared position with neighboring municipalities. Recommendation 7, work with Elgin County to add a shared generalist human resources position with the responsibility to create and implement progressive HR processes, policies, and practices to contribute to the township being an employer of choice. This position will report to the manager, corporate services, and treasurer. Recommendation 8, add the emergency planning function to fire services department and formalize the fire chief as a CEMC. Rename this department fire and emergency services under the manager, fire and emergency services, fire chief. This position will continue to report to the CAO. Recommendation 9, initiate a quarterly CAO senior management team-led town hall sessions with all staff to build positive morale and ensure that all staff hear consistent messages from their leaders. It's an important recommendation. I think you'll have significant benefit from moving ahead with something like this. Recommendation 10, provide mandatory, quote, people management training to all managers and supervisors. 10 recommendations. And I've pulled together on page 11, high-level implementation plan. Section 3 of the final report, pages 25 to 29, provides a little bit more implementation detail, including the recommended implementation sequence, what recommendations should be implemented simultaneously, the timing of the implementation, who needs to own the implementation, who else needs to be involved, and what the impacts of staff are of every recommendation implementation. Okay, so that's in the final report. Working with the senior management team on this, I think it is possible to complete this process within a year. There's nothing majorly earth-shattering here. I feel like there's nothing that has to wait more than a year, which I think is good news for you. We've also been extremely cautious with not blowing up the municipality's budget in the process, which is good, I'm sure. Except for the manager, corporate services, treasurer position, the other three recommended new positions are shared with neighboring municipalities. So we really have tried to stay within budget here, but still address a challenge that you have with the current structure. On the last page, or the second last page here, anticipated benefits. It's going to address the current workload of the CEO treasurer by splitting this role and ensuring all functions have a home department. Currently, it doesn't matter who's in that role. This role that you currently have with the CEO treasurer is not going to be one where the person is set up for success. And it really is important to make that change. Provides a much needed manager, corporate services treasurer to manage finances and drive corporate-wide initiatives to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and responsiveness across all departments. So cross-departmental roles, an absolutely critical role. And it's tied back to the finance. So having the finance and corporate services together driving cross-departmental work is, I think you're going to see a significant benefit of that. It reduces the span of authority and workload of the current manager of operations and community services by shifting out the recreation and facilities and parks to the community services department. Addresses the current functional gaps in HR, communications, emergency management, and economic development to achieve positive benefits for the community. It finds home for those. That's not going to solve the problem, but it finds home for who's going to be responsible for those functions right now that are pretty much gaps. It demonstrates that people are valued by implementing recommendations to improve internal communication, address workload issues, and provide staff with access to a shared human resources professional. Just as a side note, that came up several times, the need for staff of an HR professional. And I think that is important, especially if you could get some support at the county for a shared generalist in HR. I think that's a really cost-effective way of filling that gap. Last page, it's been a real pleasure working with Magda and Lee and Terry and the whole team here at the municipality. I do think you have a good thing going. You have some challenges, but I don't think they're, once you fix the structural changes with the org structure, I think you're gonna see significant benefits from that. And it's been a pleasure working, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm here to answer whatever questions you have.
Okay, questions from council, please. Yeah,
Through the chair, just probably maybe even Lee can fill this in for me because we're coming into budget. The way I look at it, we are looking for 3 positions currently then. It would be the recreation facilities and park position, the treasurer. Is that correct? And then the shared HR. We don't currently have anyone filling the recreation facilities and parks position, is that?
So let's go to page 11 for a second. That's right. You know, these are the exact same ones I had at council and I still don't remember. Go to page 11 for a sec, and we can talk a little bit about, I've identified what the proposed new positions are versus what the proposed revisions are. So the supervisor recreation facility parks is a revised position and a current position that you already have.
Sorry, through the chair.
yeah, carry on.
Who is that, Jennifer's position then?
No, recreation supervisor. The recreation supervisor is Adam Becker.
Yes, of course it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you're more thinking through the chair, a facilitator, like someone, yeah.
So,
We've got to look bigger in the box.
yes, so that is Adam's kind of new facilitator position, like.
So on page, there's job designs on, I don't have my full report. Do you have the full report up on the screen? Okay, so there's every job, every revised position, every new position. There's a job design there that demonstrate what changes from current. So whenever there was a position that's similar to what's been presented here, it's a revised position. So that's one, that is a revised position with a slightly revised title. So that's where maybe the confusion was. So I didn't mention that, but there is a section, 2 tables in the final report. And one is the new positions. And then the second is the revised positions and what that change is. What's going on over there?
Library.
Yeah, carry on.
So then through the chair, whose job will it be to redefine and do new job descriptions for these roles? Is that HR? Is it the management team?
And I think that's where, and I was talking to Magda about this this week. You are doing a pay equity project in the future, so this is that change in the job description is a piece that fits in between there. So I've already had a conversation with the person that you're using for that, Marion Love. I'm gonna have a conversation with her tomorrow, actually, especially about the manager of corporate services, that new position, because you have to go and advertise and so you need to have a job description there. So you're right, that's the next piece of work. And who does that? It's probably gonna be a combination of internal resources with Marion Love, and I can provide my thoughts based on what we did here. That wasn't part of my contract, but that's a piece of work. It's not a big piece of work.
Carry on.
Thank you. Through the chair, can I just say absolutely love the idea of a town hall. We have had a few in the past term of council that I was on, and I found them very successful. I believe staff enjoyed them as well. A little nerve wracking getting them ready and a lot of staff time, but the transparency and the just absolute, the residents just loved that they could come and speak and ask questions, and it was just open. So that was the idea. I know it wouldn't be like that, but just anything to have transparency with the residents is great. And number 10 was so important as well. So I looked at, we're more shifting a lot of the roles for education rather than reinventing the wheel. Like some of it's, pretty reasonable. After it's implemented for these roles, what is the time frame that you would suggest maybe to communicate with these manager heads now about how their roles are going in that? What, 6 months, year? What would you suggest for that? And then I had a follow-up question afterwards.
You guys are asking some good questions here. I mean, that's the question that you, like, as you move towards, once it's approved, if this is approved, and you move towards implementation, the first step that I have in the implementation process is to develop that project lead and that project team, and to take those items that I've put and blow them out and do like a proper project management Gantt chart that lays out the actions. That's a huge piece of it. I have recommended that the town hall, that internal town hall for staff, that's your recommendation number 1. And I think it's a perfect opportunity to thank your staff for their involvement in this project, to lay out the timelines, and to give them a sense of what's coming. And that's the beginning of that communication process. So I think that's job 1, is to lay out that project plan. And there's going to be some change management piece here for staff. And the timing of it really has to be embedded into that more detailed project plan.
Okay, and my follow-up question was for our clerk or Lee. When and where and will, or does the report going to be on the website so I can refer to it for residents when they want to read the full report?
Through the chair, nothing will be posted until everything is approved. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we can be directed where it would be, because sometimes it's difficult to.
This report
certify
itself?
When it's approved and done and everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Further questions? Yes, councillor Denny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the chair, Kelly, thank you so much for this presentation. This has been great and it's clear, tremendous amount of work. So this all makes sense. However, if we were to implement this and our staff was not agreeable to these changes, it's all for nothing. So do we have the opportunity before implementation to make sure that our staff are comfortable with this shift? I suppose that's my first question.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's the reason why we had such a collaborative process. Like there shouldn't be nothing in these recommendations that is surprising to staff who are involved in the process. And that's one of the reasons why you do have a collaborative process that includes substantial opportunities for staff to give us their areas of frustration, because we start that change management process early. So that's a partial answer, but it goes a long way into making sure that you have buy-in and momentum. But the second thing is you have to make sure you're open and transparent in every move that you make from this point forward. And say, the rationale behind the recommendations has been outlined, right? It's there. And now it's the job of the team to explain that rationale behind it and make sure that there's an opportunity for the back and forth with staff whose jobs are going to be slightly impacted by this.
Thank you for that. And if I may
Yeah,
follow
carry
up.
on.
So in this presentation, the recommendation, it appears as though essentially one new position is being created, the corporate services and the separation of the CEO with the treasurer. So obviously with that new position, there's a cost associated with that. Will we have the opportunity to know within reason what that additional salary is going to cost and how that's going to impact the budget and taxes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've already had that conversation. I mean, it had to go past this body here, but once it goes past this body here, I'll connect back to with Magda and Marion Love, who's doing the pay equity or the compensation review in the future. And that's one of the areas that I will have to be, she'll have to provide us with some input as to what that level is. I don't think it's not gonna be difficult to get to. I mean, it's part of the management team. You have members of your management team here, so it's gonna be in that ballpark. That's kind of a next step for sure. And so then you'll have that information. Where are you at in the budgeting process right now? So so this is perfect timing. You'll have this information for budget time. Yeah, okay.
Anyone else? Councillor Statham.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kelly. This is great. I just had a question about the shared positions. So we had the specialist in asset management, the generalist in human resources, and then a future position of the specialist communications and community engagement as shared positions with neighboring municipalities. I just wondered, have we looked into it all if any of the neighboring municipalities in the region have those positions already? Who are we going to share them with? And if the positions don't already exist, how are we going to investigate that, whether it be with Dutton, Dunwich or Middlesex? Thank you.
Yeah, really good question, Counselor. So it depends on what position. So conversations have been had already, I believe, with Magda with regard to the specialist asset management share position. The specialist communications and community engagement, the potential future share position, that one there is kind of, it's been put in asterisks for a reason, because we have to, there's a bunch of changes going on here, and there needs to be an opportunity to operate in those changes to determine that a specialist communication and community engagement is actually needed. So that one there, but even if it is needed, there's not a sense that it's going to be a full-time role. So not too much work has been done on that one yet with the other municipalities, because you're not sure that you need it. But those conversations would need to be had. What else is shared that the generalist human resources conversations have started with the county on a shared, and I think that's very strategic. That's a good tactical move to have the county look at that. I'm not privy to those conversations, so you guys know more about that than I do, but I think there's initial conversations that have happened there, and potentially using the county to share some human resources. So I think those are the three. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Through the chair, almost similar to Ryan's question. The one I had a question about was the fire service department. We are already currently sharing him with other municipalities, and I'm wondering if it has been discussed adding yet one more piece to his job.
Yes, he has been involved in those conversations, and there is a recognition that if they add that role to his job description, there's probably going to be a need for some administrative assistance to provide a percentage of their work to support him in that role. So that has been identified in the final report as an implementation consideration.
And then through the
Okay,
chair,
yeah.
a very different question. To Bill's point, we're going to come up to community members asking us why we are spending more money. I'm wondering, because you have lots of experience, the cost of understaffing a municipality. And do you feel that currently we are in a position that we are understaffed?
understaffed at the senior level? Absolutely. And I think it's very difficult, and I've been in your shoes. It's very difficult to explain to citizens why you're adding staff. I'm 100% convinced that you have to make that move. Like it really is. And but it's more of a risk perspective. You're going to burn out good people. And you're also going to, the risks of having a CAO / treasurer, doesn't matter what size you are, to having that as a split role and trying to expect that that person is going to be able to oversee all the operations while making sure that they're kind of the gatekeeper for all the financial stuff. That's too big of a role. It's too big of a role. And so how do you explain that to people? You know, I think if council's solidly behind it, saying, look, we want to make sure that we have a modern, efficient municipality, and we're not adding significant staff. As you can see by this, whatever we're sharing, including one of the senior managers and the fire chief. So you're doing a really, really good job in making sure that you're leveraging other municipalities to share some of the costs. But when it comes to the treasurer and the manager of corporate services, you cannot share that role. Like that needs to be a role that's accountable to council for the finances and the corporate services of this organization. And I think that's defensible. And I think the majority of people, I still think it's a majority of people, will understand that. Sometimes I wonder, but.
I agree with you. It's just sometimes nice to have an expert say the things.
Yep. Any further questions from anyone? Teresa? No? Well, I thank you very much. What a good presentation. And I know it makes a lot of sense. You've echoed what quite a lot of us have been thinking for quite a long time. And we're trying to save the municipality here. We don't want it to break down. And I think we're on the right direction. You've put us on the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You carry on.
Thank you, through the chair. So at this time, is council looking to approve the plan as presented or defer it until we have a little bit more information, budget wise and so forth?
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, I'm fine with approving it. I'm not sure what everyone else around the table is thinking.
Anything? Yeah, carry on.
I, through the chair, I do hesitate a little bit in approving it without knowing what the fiscal responsibilities are going to be. I would say that subject to the budget review. I mean, I don't want to hold this back, but I don't want to approve something that is going to with an unknown cost. I don't feel comfortable with that.
I understand that one. Councillor Novakis.
Through the chair, I think that I understand Bill's budgetary thing, but I would also kind of look at the cost of high turnover in any organization and what that actually does end up costing the municipality. 10 years ago, it was something like $8,000 per employee for retraining, and I'm sure it's more now. And I think that part of the reason why I brought this motion up for an organizational review is that we have a municipality that has a high rate of turnover. I think these are excellent recommendations, and I think that the one position we're looking at has always existed. We just have not filled it again, and it's just gone unfilled because we couldn't maybe find the right position. And it does look through the job description that we've made it maybe more appealing to attract that person. I think speaking even to Magda last time, that she was open to the idea of hiring a treasurer. She was just waiting for this report. I think it is going to cost money, but it was money that we were already spending up until last year. So for the community, it's a role that has always kind of existed and we're trying to bring back.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, to echo many of that, because that's a lot of what I was going to say, but yeah, we've always had in the past. not a joint role, not had a joint role, and the structure of municipality, you should have your CAO hat on and your treasurer hat on. Like, it's just difficult to combine the two. Don't want to burn out our CAO. Just too much going on. And I think it's time we just go ahead, rip the Band-Aid off, and I think the fiscal part of it was already there. We know we have to do it. We've had it in the past, so I think we need to move forward and not just wasting more time.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Statham.
Through the chair, just to Councillor Denning's point, I just wondered how long would it take us to establish a general idea of the costs? Is this something that would take a long period of time, or is it something that we could turn around fairly quickly? I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not sure.
I really think the price of another treasurer shouldn't take too long at all. I mean, you know, it's you can find it on paper almost now. It's just what agreement you can come with. And I think you'd agree with me on that one.
I would, yeah, no, this is a matter of days, and the other thing is, I mean, you could always approve it and push it to the budget cycle. Everything has to go through budget anyway, right? So approve it subject to the budget is still approving the recommendation. It's got to go through your budget anyway, right?
All I know right now, in my opinion, and looking, we're on sort of a crash course, and we have to do something. Something's got to be fixed. So maybe sooner than later. I mean, it costs us a lot of money for having inexperienced people and a quick turnover, like you said. And I know that if you've got somebody that can take the pressure off our head staff, it's going to be worth a lot of money to us. You can put the recommendation through and we'll see what council says.
That West Elgin Council hereby approve the organizational review presented by Mr. Kelly Linton, Linton Consulting Services, Inc., subject to the budget deliberations.
So we need a mover on that, and I've got it with the councillor Navakis. Now I'm calling for a seconder. Seconder is councillor Denning, and all in favour? I see a full house. We're all in favour, so that's passed, carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and thank you. And at this minute, I want to call for a 10 minutes, well, 5 minutes break anyway. Okay, we're going to continue with the meeting and adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the council meeting on December 21st, 2023 be adopted as circulated and printed.
Have I got a mover, please? Councillor Statham, Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? It's carried. Business arising from the minutes. Being none? Okay, we go to 7, which is the consent agenda. Yes,
Through the chair, I'd like to
Yep.
pull out 7.1.2.
7.1, 7.2. Okay, you wish to talk about that after? Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, so if you'll go then, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives and files the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, a mover, please. Councillor Denning, seconder. Councillor Navakis, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, the consent agenda goes. I'm going down to 8 staff reports. Okay, so building for one. The month, I presume everybody's read it. We haven't got a. So I'll have a recommendation on that one, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Corey Pemberton, CBO, regarding Building Department Summary Report for the month of December 2023.
Mover, please. Councillor Navakis, seconded. Deputy Mayor Tellier, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Report from the fire. 8.2. We've all read that and what's happened in the past, different incidents. So could I have a recommendation, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Jeff MacArthur, Fire Chief, regarding November and December 2023 fire report for information purposes.
Okay, a mover, please. Councillor Denning. Seconder. Councillor Statham. All in favour? It's carried. Oh, 8.3, operations and community services. Monthly operations update, December 2023. Have you anything on that, Lee? Nothing? That's what, okay. So a recommendation on, oh, sorry,
Through
carry
the
on.
chair, I love the new boxes at the bottom. So wouldn't that also be infrastructure improvement as a check, or are we just marking what the report is for the community? So that's communication, or so it's not the action in there that we're referring to, it's the report.
Correct. That's through the chair. It's the report itself. This is just an information update from Lee's department.
Okay, so even though they are doing infrastructure improvements, it doesn't get marked off.
So if the other, if there was previous reports, we weren't doing the boxes at the bottom, those previous reports would have indicated to the infrastructure.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll go to a recommendation then, please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the monthly operations report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operations and Community Services, for information purposes.
Okay, I'd like a mover, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier. Seconder. Councillor Navakis. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Okay. GIS. Data collection equipment. Who's got something on that?
Yep.
Yes,
So-
please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So this report is on GIS data collection equipment. As you remember, in the December 21st council meeting, we discussed the shared service with the Township of Southwold for a GIS technician to work. So part of that position is going to be collecting data in the field, assets, municipal assets, and that all ties into our asset management plan. So obviously we need the hardware or the equipment to be able to do that data collection. And, it's the old saying, it's only as good as what you put in, right? The product is only as good as what you put in. So myself and my counterpart in Southwold spent a lot of time researching the hardware that would be required for this. We felt that it would be important for us to both purchase the same equipment, so it was a seamless transition for that staff member going back and forth between, so they're not handling two entirely
Yeah.
different products. And also it provides benefit that if there's a large project that we're trying to collect a lot of data in a short time, we can utilize two. We can borrow if one goes down, we can share that as well. So Southwold has just gone ahead and they've already proved they've made their purchase, and I'm just seeking council's approval to do the same to match them.
Yeah, whatever you said to me just made a lot of sense. So Have we got a oh, yeah,
So when I was looking online at
Councillor
them,
Vaca.
everyone said that a subscription was sold separately. So is that something else that will be?
So this, the initial cost here, includes the hardware training, which we can, share jointly, the training cost with Southwold. And then this year's subscription, and then the subscription for this would be just included in the operational budget going forward from year to year. It's not a huge expense. Cause we can literally, we can buy the subscription in kind of packets. So the more we use the system, we can just buy more, we can add more time to that. So if we use it less, we have to spend less. So
Yeah. Any other councillor that wants to make a comment? Please, can I have the recommendation, please?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the GIS data collection equipment report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operations and Community Services, and that West Elgin Council approves the purchase of a Trimble Catalyst DA2 solution from Cancel of Richmond Hill for the quoted price of $3,143.99 plus applicable taxes.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Navakis, seconded. Brian Statham, councillor. All in favour? It's carried, thank you. Okay. 8.4, clerks, material bylaw recommendations. Could you like to talk on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. So this report is presented to you today just to go over our procedural bylaw. Of course, this is the bylaw that governs our meetings of council. So what I've done is I've just gone through it to see if we can streamline the agenda and the process a little bit. You'll see in the sample agenda that I've presented to you as well, it goes back to more of the previous, I shouldn't say simplified, but streamlined approach to the agenda, maybe a little less confusion on all the bullets that are on the agenda. I know that we've found in going through the agenda, sometimes it's difficult to find exactly what we're referring to or looking for. So what I'd like to do is just go each item at a time. And if council has any questions or concerns on anyone that I have been recommending at this time, please just let me know as we go through it. So the first one was item number 2.7, removed committee of the whole. Council had previously discussed removing and utilizing special meetings when necessary to reduce the number of meetings. Also removed any reference to committee of the whole throughout the bylaw. Going forward, as we had mentioned, we'd like to utilize the special meetings or just our regular council meetings to conduct all business. Item number 3.4, this one's very, very minor. It's just updating where it refers to Robert's Rules of Order, just to the most recent revised edition, because that is a booklet that does get reviewed and revised regularly. Item number 4.2.1, inserted by council for electronic participation purposes. Item 4.2.6.1, the order of business has been streamlined to provide for less clutter on the agenda. Also noted is that the order of business may be altered for accommodation purposes as required, and the sample agenda was attached to that report as well. So what I did with this is I also compared to some of our neighboring municipalities and smaller rural municipalities such as Southwold, Dutton, Dunwich, to see what their agendas look like as well. So we're not too far off from what we're at right now. Is there any questions so far from council? No, I will continue on. Item number 4.2.6.2, I removed the full section regarding the consent agenda. As the sample agenda, we reverted back to the previous West Elgin style agenda with a correspondence section. So within this, council will still have the opportunity to pull items from correspondence, just like Councillor Navakis did tonight. And we will move it to the section to discuss items requiring council consideration. Item number 4.3.2, added the addition of CAO calling meetings in the event that the head of council is unavailable and only if deemed necessary. This is just to be used under special circumstances, only if the head of council, the head of council will remain first in order for calling any special meetings. So did council have any questions with that at all? Item number 4.5.1, I removed the reference to Appendix B as I included Appendix B within the body of the procedural bylaw. Number 5.1.3, the published agenda is to be, will be considered as adequate notice, which is standard to many procedural bylaws that the published agenda is notice of the agenda. Item 6.1, I amended the 12 o'clock noon, amended to 12 o'clock noon for the delegation purposes, as we did recently change our meetings to 4 PM. So that just allows a little more time for the delegations to get their material to the clerk. Item 6.2, I removed the maximum of 2 delegations. And this is certainly up to council whether they would like to keep it at 2 or remove that clause. The delegations will be monitored by the clerk, and if necessary, additional delegations may be scheduled if deemed necessary. So in the past, I have had instances where somebody has come to me and it could be a very simple delegation that they wanted to come to council with, but I've had to decline them because the procedural bylaw did state that it was a maximum of 2. So is council okay with removing that provision in there, and it will just be monitored on a case-by-case scenario? We'd like to keep it at 2 just for time's sake, but of course, if necessary, is council okay with adding an additional?
If they're only, you can see that they're only small.
Correct.
And beside the point, they've only got a certain time limit anyway.
That's correct. We would keep them at the 10 minutes. So item number 7.5, I added the provision to publicly post the post-meeting minutes only once council has adopted them. This allows council to review and provide any necessary errors and omissions prior to being made available to the public. The meeting video will continue to be posted as soon as available, pending no technical difficulties. So with this, I feel it is important for council to review the minutes before we make them public make them public on our website. That way, if there's something that is missed in the minutes or that I have put in there by error, that allows council to make those corrections prior to putting them out in the public. Is council okay with that?
Through the chair, it only makes sense to publish the correct minutes after everyone's made sure with several eyes. That's great. I have a different question though. I don't know where to ask it, so if it's okay if I ask it now, because
Absolutely.
it's about minutes. So our committee minutes,
Mhm.
once they're approved, we're supposed to be submitting them, but I don't always see them because it's nice to know what's happening though. The committees, can we add this here or do we do that somewhere else?
I can certainly add them on the agenda. Where would you like to see them? I can put them under minutes and then just have them as council acknowledging receipt of them.
I'm not sure we've had them in the past, but they made sense. I'm
I'll-
trying to think right now.
I can take a look at a previous agenda and see where they were put on, and absolutely I can do that.
Yeah, it's just nice to know to see the arena minutes and have everything updated in your head because someone asked you a question,
Absolutely.
then
Yeah.
you can refer to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just make a note of that. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yes,
Thank you through the chair. With regards to holding back the minutes until they've been approved at the next council meeting, that's in compliance. We're able to
Absolutely,
do that.
yes, yes,
Thank you.
yes. So where are we at here? Item 9.1, I removed the Appendix A, which is also now included in the body of the procedural bylaw. And then Part 12 added rules of conduct for members of the public. So fortunately, while this has not been an issue, it appears in many procedural bylaws that there is just a section on members of the public it's more of a code of conduct, so that it allows, it provides councils with their options if something does happen, how they can proceed with that. Item number 23, I added the section on procedural imperfections, indicating that procedural imperfections shall not affect the validity of any action taken. And it also is a standard clause in many procedural bylaws. Section 24, execution of documents added, indicating that the head of council or designate and the clerk or designate are authorized to sign the documents on behalf. Again, also just a standard clause in the end of most procedural bylaws. So is there any questions as I wrap that up.
Yes, councillor.
Through the chair, looking back
Deputy.
at 4.3.2. So as Mr. Linton said, we all get along really well. We all work really well with our CAO and everything, but as he stated, sometimes that doesn't happen. So I'm just looking at the future, someone else sitting in these chairs. If there was, it says that the CAO
Mhm.
is to call a meeting.
Mhm.
Well, what if they wouldn't call a meeting when the head of the council wasn't available? Like, what happens then? If the council wants to, but the head's not available and.
And that would be going against the municipal act, so.
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I thought, so I wanted to double check.
Yes.
What section can you find out? Send that to me?
I can certainly find it
Okay,
out for you.
thanks.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm
I
just
don't know
thinking
off
that-
the top of my head.
In the future, because you do hear of other councils
Yes.
having some clashes. so-
Yeah, and in that, I can also add in there that the CAO in consultation with council. Would you like that added to that?
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, and then just some, these are more housekeeping items not required for the procedural bylaw. So this was in consultation with our planner, the Committee of Adjustment. So our current procedure right now is to have the meeting inside the meeting. Which can it can get a little confusing and cluttered on the agenda. So it's not typical to hold the meeting like this, but to have it generally prior to the meeting. And in most cases, you would see about 15 minutes allotted per application. So this is for minor variances and we don't often see them. So what the suggestion is that we would hold the meeting prior to the 4 o'clock meeting. So if there was one minor variance, we would have it at 3:45. Two minor variances, we would hold it at 3:30. But of course, that would take a little bit more out of council's time to come in a little bit earlier. So that we just wanted to discuss that with council first before we went forward with that. Would council be okay to having it prior to the council meeting or keep it status quo?
Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, it's fine to work myself around that. Not sure for the rest of council, but does that work with staff as well?
It
To
does.
have it had,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, yes, we're here. Anyway, so, and certainly our planner was on board with that. The other municipalities that he works with, they do it separate from the council meeting as well.
Oh, do they?
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Any other questions from anyone? No?
no, and then the last item I have here is the clerks get a significant amount of resolutions from other municipalities. So instead of putting them all on the agenda, I know what some other clerks do is they compile it and they just send them in a weekly email to council. And then whichever ones council would like on the agenda, we put those on. Because some of them you see resolutions that are from, northern municipalities that may not affect us and they bog down our agenda. So the suggestions are that the clerk can create a weekly file with all these emails and forward them to council each Friday. From there, council can choose which items they would like to discuss and they will be added to items requiring council consideration. Or the clerk can add these items to the agenda under correspondence, which only pertain to West Elgin and surrounding county of Elgin. So just a couple different options or remain status quo and I can put them all on there if you'd like.
Councillor Bacchus.
I like number one. I
Mhm.
enjoy reading them, but sometimes when our council meetings are long, I also resent them a little.
Okay. Yeah,
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 That's an honest answer.
yeah.
you covered that pretty well. Councillor Bacchus.
Okay, so council's on board with me creating a weekly email and then I will send it out and you let me know which ones you would like to see on the agenda. So I know that was a lengthy report. I do appreciate council's time on that. So I now have a recommendation.
Yes, please.
Okay. So that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Terry Toship Clerk regarding procedural bylaw recommended updates and that West Elgin Council hereby approve the recommendations as amended and that West Elgin Council hereby directs staff to proceed with the public notification process pursuant to bylaw 2007-113 and that West Elgin Council hereby requests staff to bring back the bylaw for adoption at the next regular council meeting.
Okay. So I need a mover for that, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier. And the seconder is Councillor Navakis, all in favour? It's carried, thank you. And that takes us on to community grants applications. So I think we've got quite a bit to look at.
Thank you through the chair. So I did have each one of the applications sent to you, as well as a spreadsheet just indicating the group, the amount requested, whether it be funds or in kind, and the general nature of it. So I will put this to the floor to council to discuss, and we can go through it, each one, starting with, I've got them in alphabetical order, with the Dutton Dunwich West Elgin Community Fund, requesting waived fee rentals for the Scout Hall 3 to 4 times annually, an approximate cost of $200.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Not sure. You just want to handle each one individually? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, and more or less just a yes or no, or a different option.
Yeah, I'm fine with that in-kind request for that first one, the Dunwich West Elgin Community Fund. So, I don't know if anybody else is.
First of all, our asks have been bigger, more than what we have. Okay, so how can we start off by saying yes when we don't? We need a total, and so we have to maneuver each one or some of them to make sense. Councillor Navakis, please.
I realize in the report, there's categories that it's supposed to be addressing. I almost wish we could have. Why have I lost it? Ways for us to make fair decisions across the board, so either standards or that they are meeting points that we are looking for. It's a ton of money that's being asked for, and it seems that it's for a very specific use. It's hard to go through each of these organizations because they are all so worthy. But criteria, the word is criteria. I'm looking for a way for us to set criteria across the board so that we're making these decisions. We are making them the same for each organization. And going through this last night, and I realized we need this for the budget. I don't know if I'm ready to be voted, like, how are we deciding? It seems almost arbitrary for me today to decide the amount of money that we're giving people, because I don't have a criteria that we are all working from.
Yeah. I can see your point. We could get halfway through these grants and run out of money. You know, and then what do we do? You know, I think a little bit is better than none. You know, and we can, we should be able to look at it and grade it
Well,
to their wants and needs.
through the chair, some of these asks, the larger ones, it's whether or not we give them that little bit of money if they are going to move forward with the project that they've asked for. And so I'm wondering for these organizations, if we set criteria and a limit amount that we are willing to give each organization based on these requests, if they are going to want to put that money aside for the project they asked for, or perhaps if they know that we are only giving out hypothetically $2,500 to each organization, they're going to want the money for something else instead.
It's definitely, man.
Through the chair, do they not, for example, the lawn bowling in the past went ahead with the project and then brought the receipts back to us? Do they not do that? Most likely, like the in-kind, obviously there's no receipt. It's our staff time and our building expenses, like our fees to go in, but.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you. Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. So that is my understanding, and that they move forward with the project. Maybe Lee can clarify this a little bit more, as I've not been through the full process yet myself with West Elgin. But they do have to submit receipts from my understanding, and then they're paid based on that.
In my past experience, when we've done this before, we go through each application and we keep a running total. Because we have to know what we're doing. We don't want to run out and give some people their full amount and some none.
Mhm.
So it's a long procedure to get it right.
Mhm.
So if somebody's asking for 5,000, they might get 3, and then you carry on down the process until you come to what you can afford. And it takes time. And that's how we've done it in the past. Yes, councillor.
Through the chair, it would almost, for me, I prefer to know the total that the
Uh,
council is comfortable with and work our way from the total that we've decided. And then rank where, like, we rate the applications based on that, and then through that rating, they are given a percentage of the total that we have set aside, but I don't even know roughly what a total is that we would be willing to do this, and it's hard without our budget decide how much, like, kind of seems horse cart
Yes,
issue.
yes, it does. I think we're in a difficult situation right now. Anyone else like to speak on that? Yeah, okay, councillor Denny.
Thank you. And so through the chair, I suppose one of the questions I have is that for planning purposes, what have we done in the past? What has been the amount that we've had to work with in the past in this particular situation?
Well, I can't remember amounts in particular, but I know that at the end of the day, we can't exceed the amount that we've allocated. And that's why we have to prorate everyone to make it come to a total that we can afford.
Like, for example, one time we had someone ask for they needed new machinery, non-for-profit. So we gave a small sum towards machinery, not what they asked, and then another sum towards a building project they had. And that we didn't give full what they were asking for. So kind of like when we do grants, we ask for this and we kind
Hope
of
to
given
get
this,
this.
yeah. So that's kind of how it's been in the past.
Magda, excuse me, if you wouldn't mind, how did we used to do the grants? We used to do the grants, but we had to prorate them. We couldn't give everybody what they wanted. Obviously, it was exceeding the amount of money that we had, right?
Through the chair, so basically in the last 2 years, we would allocate $30,000 into our incorporate $30,000 into our operating budget. And from there, council would go over the list of applications and basically allocate that money accordingly.
Yeah. So it worked out at the finish.
Yes.
So it's quite an ordeal to go through it. Like, you have to go through each one, and at the end of the day, you have got to come out with a total. Yes.
Through the
Councillor
chair,
Rebecca.
I realize that these groups are waiting, but I would almost like to not vote on these today and perhaps take some time. It seems that we just went through a strategic plan that gave us our mission statement. And so if we know roughly the amount that we're spending, perhaps council with an eye to what our mission statement is, can go and have a better look at these. So we're all kind of on a same level of criteria, and then come back
Yeah.
with where we are
It-
thinking for each of the project, like,
In the
I'm not
past-
ready to do this today.
In the past, we had all the asks, and council would look at individually, wherever, not all together, and we'd put down, if somebody wanted 2,000, maybe I'd put 1,500, okay? And then everybody, and then when we did have a meeting, we'd say, okay, what does everybody seem to think on this one? And we'd put our numbers out, and we'd come up with a happy medium, and until we come to a solution at the end. And if you've got each, and you know, some people like Quad County, some people like so it would vary a little bit, but on average, because you know you had to cut down a little bit, it sort of worked out in the finish.
Through the chair, I would just like more time so that when I make the decision, I can tell these organizations what criteria I was using and why I came up with the number that I did. And today I can't do that.
Fair enough, thank you. So I don't know, I'm at a bit of a loss, how we go from here.
I can read a recommendation. The West Elgin Council hereby receives the community grant application report from Terry Toshchuk clerk, and that council defer the community grant application report to a future meeting of council.
Okay, so I've got a mover, councillor Navakis. I want a seconder, councillor Denning, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you, I think that's wise. Okay, so. Community survey platforms. Who's speaking on that one? Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. So this report is presented to you today. Just at the last meeting, council had discussed the dog park possibilities and asked that council move forward with a survey. So we have looked into a couple different platforms that we would like to use, just moving forward with our strategic planning goal for better communication with our residents. Throughout the year, we'd like to do multiple different community surveys just for the engagement purposes. So with this, we've got 3 different options here. We've got Survey Monkey, which I believe we already do have an account for. I've used it myself. I'm familiar with it. It is pretty straightforward. That's the one that we used for the strategic planning survey back in the fall. Typeform, that is the platform that we have used for Trumpia. It's okay. It's certainly not my favorite. And then the Survey Planet, I'm not familiar with this one at all. I've never used it myself. So these are the options that were presented. Of course, a couple of them are in American dollars, so I've given an approximate conversion just on the day that I prepared the report. But again, we'd like to use it as regularly as possible whenever anything is going on within the community, just to get that input, get that feedback from our residents. So does council have any questions or suggestions on different platforms, maybe their own personal use or preference with it?
Yes, councillor Statham.
Through the chair. I just wondered, so you have a column here that's the number of responses permitted for each individual platform. Do we ever come close to that? I mean, 1,000 responses per month seems to me, given that the municipality has 5,000 residents, it seems like an awful lot. So, my feeling would be that those number of responses would more than, for any one of those 3 options, that would be sufficient. Would you agree?
I do. Yes, I don't believe that we would go over that many responses, but
Perfect. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah. Is there any specific platform that council would prefer?
Councillor Navakis.
I've only used Survey Monkey, but when I was Googling Survey Planet, it had really great user-friendly reviews.
Okay.
But like I said, I've never used it. I've never known anyone to use it, and they could be paid reviews, but they did come out often ranked higher than Survey Monkey
Okay.
for usability.
Okay, that's wonderful to know, and certainly they were the lower end for cost wise as well. So with that in mind too, with this being something new in a trial that we're gonna do, keeping costs lower is certainly something that we could be cautious with as well. So I would be happy to go with option number 3 if that is what council would like to see. Any other comments? No?
Anybody else?
So the
So
recommendation
recommendation, please.
is that West Elgin Council hereby receives the community survey platform report from Terry Toshchuk clerk, and that council hereby approve option number 3 to be included in the 2024 budget deliberations.
Move it, please. Deputy Mayor Tellier, seconder. Councillor Denning. All in favour? Any opposed? Okay, it's carried. carried. Committee and board reports. Council reports from committees. Seeing none. Number 10, accounts. Could we read that out, please?
That the mayor and treasurer are hereby authorized to sign payment voucher number 1 amounting in $1,961,217.93 in settlement of general road, water, and arena accounts, including EFT number 7646 to 7777, online payments number 1300 to 1308, check number 26355 to 26368, and payroll pay period 26.
Okay, that seems like a very large one. Can I ask you the question? Do we have the money? Okay. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Statham. Seconder. Councillor Navakis, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. 11, consideration of items requiring discussion.
So we have item number 7.1.2 brought back to the table, which was a resolution regarding rising municipal insurance costs. Councillor Navakis, would you like to speak on that?
Yes, please.
Through the chair, just as we saw in our budget and everyone is talking about it, we only have two insurance companies that we are currently able to use. And as this letter shows, all of our insurance has gone up astronomically. And I do think it's time that one level of government steps in and tries to help. It's one of the largest costs on our budget, and there's nothing that we can do about it.
No, our hands are tied. And you had a second one, did you? No? Council inquiries and announcements. I was just going to mention that the county on Tuesday agreed to carry on with the Meals on Wheels for another 12 months at least from Bobia. And so that'll help our local health people here. I think they're at the moment they're providing around 33 meals a day. Cost might go up a few pennies, but at least we've got it for another 12 months. So that's good news for our people that need those meals. So that was my report from County Council. Anything else, anyone? Okay, so upcoming meetings, please.
Thank you through the chair. So just to note here, our upcoming meetings that we have, January 15th, we have the 4 Counties Transit Committee, 8:30 a.m. in the council chambers. January 17th, our Recreation Committee, 7 p.m. on Zoom. January 25th is our council meeting, 4 o'clock here in the council chambers. And it is proposed that we will do the capital budget presentation at that time. And then we also have a committee of adjustment, which will be, it'll be at 4 o'clock for this meeting. And it'll be within the council meeting. February 6th, Tri-County Water Committee will be at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. February 8th, council, once again, 4 o'clock council chambers, and this will be the water and sewage budget presentation. February 14th, we have our West Elgin Community Center Board of Management, which is our arena board, 9 a.m. in the council chambers, and February 22nd is council again, 4 p.m. council chambers, and this will include the operating budget presentation. Did anybody else have any board or committee meetings that they would like added to our agenda?
Seeing none? Oh, yeah, I do, Deputy.
Through the chair, Heritage Homes meeting, committee meeting is the
On the 29th?
29th at 1 PM. And then, yeah, that's it, I think.
January 29th, 1 p.m.
Correct.
Correct. It's normally the Monday before, the third Monday, but due to Roma, they had to change it.
Councillor Novakis?
February 13th will be our first Economic Development Committee meeting at 7 PM.
Where's that? You haven't got a venue yet. Okay, so thank you for that. 14. Bylaws.
Thank you through the chair. So just a little bit of background about this one, as there's no report attached to it. This is a site plan agreement for the Thames Valley District School Board for the West Elgin Secondary School. Work that was done this past summer, that the agreement was just not signed by that time. So this is just wrapping up some loose ends. Did anybody in council have any questions about that at all? Okay. The recommendation is that bylaw 2024-01 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Thames Valley District School Board, West Elgin Secondary School be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Denning, seconder. Councillor Stayth. All in favour? It's carried. Okay, so closed session.
The recommendation is that the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby proceeds into closed session at 5:38 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 239-2D, Labor Relations or Employee Negotiations, and Section 239-2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board.
Okay, can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Stathel. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Tellier. All in favour? It's carried. Right. Then where do we go from now? Okay, report from closed session, please.
That council received items pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 239-2D, Labor Relations or Employee Negotiations, and Section 239-2E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Council provided staff direction to proceed as required.
Okay, so I call for a mover, is that correct?
No, we don't do that one.
No? Okay. So we go to 17, confirming bylaw.
That bylaw 2024-02 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on January 11th, 2024 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover, please. Councillor Denning. Seconded. Councillor Novakis. All in favour? Carried. And then we go on to adjournment.
That the council of the municipality of West Elgin adjourn at 7:33 p.m. to meet again at 4:00 p.m. on Thursday, January 25th, 2024, or at the call of the chair.
Mover, please. Deputy Mayor. Oh, seconded, councillor Novakis. All in favour? Okay, carried.